Hey guys, tonight we begin somewhere warm, somewhere bright, and somewhere you'd think would make for a great vacation if you weren't, technically imprisoned. Welcome to Crete. More specifically, welcome to the workshop of your father, Daedalus, which just happens to be located inside the royal palace. Sounds fancy, but don't get too excited. The only thing royal about your situation is the level of boredom you've achieved after weeks, months of confinement. You're Icarus, a beach boy with curly hair, permanently sand-dusted toes, and a look in your eyes that says, I'm ready to do something dumb. You wake up on a woven mat laid over cool stone. The air smells like salt, olives, and the faint hint of singed feathers. Outside, you can hear the sea, always calling, always unreachable. The sky is that perfect Aegean blue, like someone turned the saturation up too high, but all you can do is stare at it from behind the latticed stone window. You stretch, yawn, and squint toward your father. Daedalus is already tinkering. He's the kind of guy who makes an espresso machine out of a conch shell and some bronze tubing, then forgets to drink the coffee. An inventor, a genius, and perhaps a bit responsible for getting you both stuck here. Turns out, kings don't appreciate when their personal labyrinth architect helps a monster's mother escape. Go figure. So now you're here, stuck, together. Your meals are brought by silent servants. You're allowed to walk the palace grounds, but only with two guards shadowing you like sad, sunburned babysitters. You've tried everything to escape the monotony. Rock-skipping contests with yourself, counting the waves, even talking to the pigeons. They're bad conversationalists. In case you were wondering, your father hasn't spoken much since dawn, but there's a new gleam in his eye. He's mumbling to himself in ancient Greek, like really ancient Greek, and occasionally burning his fingers on something behind a curtain. You lean in, curious. Go back to your drawings, he says, not even looking up. You don't have drawings. You never had drawings. That's just code for don't get involved. And some historians still argue whether he invented the concept of air conditioning centuries too early. No one mentions his parenting skills, though. Wonder why. Anyway, you're back to pacing. The stone floor is worn smooth under your favorite pacing path. You wish you had a friend, or a ship, or at least better snacks. The palace only serves olives and barley cakes. Try being a teenager on that. In his best, I didn't want to tell you yet, voice, he mutters, we're going to fly out of here. Here's a weird historical tidbit. Some ancient sources suggest that Daedalus tested his ideas on prisoners or animals first. Others claim he learned how birds glided by dissecting them. The truth? Historians still debate whether he was a genius ahead of his time or just really into arts and crafts with dangerous consequences. Back to you, you're torn between awe and dread. The idea of flying sounds incredible. Soaring over the sea, free at last, hair whipping in the wind like some kind of mythic shampoo commercial. But also, wax and feathers don't scream safe aviation, with the faintest shimmer from the resin coating. We'll need hundreds more, he says. Start collecting. Avoid seagull ones, they smell weird. You're getting closer to answering. The next morning arrives with a burst of sunlight straight to your eyeballs, because Daedalus still hasn't figured out curtains. You roll over, only to find a feather stuck to your cheek and wax in your hair. Glamorous start to the day. Today's agenda? More feathers. You're not just a flight test dummy anymore. You're also procurement. The palace has pigeons, doves, and more seagulls than anyone ever asked for. You spend the early hours collecting feathers, some pristine, some suspiciously greasy, all destined for your dad's increasingly Frankensteinian wing contraption. Hold them by the quill. Daedalus mutters, hunched over a fire, mixing beeswax with resin and a touch of olive oil. Otherwise they bend wrong. The Minoans were way ahead of their time, hot and cold water closets, the works. You, however, are still using a clay pot and a prayer, but the palace is also quiet now. Too quiet. The buzz of gossip has faded. The courtiers avoid your wing of the building, and even the guards have grown lax. Rumors swirl that King Minos is obsessed with something under the palace. You suspect it has horns. You remember the Minotaur, don't you? Half man, half bull, all nightmare. Your dad helped design the labyrinth to hold him. Some say he even helped create him, which makes family dinners super awkward. But now, there's no word of the beast. Historians still debate whether the Minotaur ever existed, or if he was just a metaphor for royal scandal. You've never asked Daedalus directly. Some doors are better left closed. Back to feathers. You've got blisters on your hands and more down in your nostrils than you'd like to admit. You sneeze. Loud. A nearby guard jerks awake, fumbles his spear, then gives you the universal look for seriously. Using fish bones as pins, you'll need to strengthen your arms. But apparently, that's your runway. He straps one of the half-finished wings to your arm, like some kind of prehistoric jetpack, and gestures toward the hill. You hesitate. Isn't this how your last apprentice broke his leg? You swat it away, step up, and take a deep breath. The palace looms behind you. Ahead, the sea. And between, a lot of unforgiving earth. You jump. For exactly half a second, you feel weightless. The wing catches the air just enough to tilt you sideways into a bush. Not exactly majestic, but you're laughing anyway. It's the closest you've felt to flying since ever. Daedalus applauds once, which is probably his version of a standing ovation. Again, you did well. As the moon rises over Crete, casting silvery shadows over the crumbling palace, you lie awake thinking of wings, of the sea, of escape, also of how much your arms hurt. The morning greets you with the scent of melting wax and the sound of your father muttering something that might be a prayer or possibly a curse. Either way, you've learned not to interrupt him before he's had his olive paste. You rub your sore arms and realize you've officially graduated from imprisoned son to full-time wing assistant, handing you a dripping glob of wax and something that may have once been part of a goose. And don't let it cool too fast, homemade glider sort of way. So, you ask, as casually as someone holding a flaming feather can, what happens if it rains? These wings must carry your life. We make things thinking we can control them, but the things we make, they change us, and some fringe scholars argue he intentionally sabotaged King Minos's plans from the inside, out of guilt. You don't know about all that. You just know your dad is sad, brilliant, and possibly planning your joint sky death. But the wings are starting to look real, like really real. They're almost your size now. When he straps one onto your back for a test fitting, it actually shifts with your movement. The feathers rustle, and for a second, you feel a phantom lift under your arms. That night, after dinner, stale barley again, you sneak out to the edge of the palace. You look up at the stars and hold one of the feathers up to the moonlight. It glows faintly, and you wonder what it will feel like to truly leave the earth. Then you hear a noise, voices, soft, hurried. From around the corner, you duck behind a pillar and listen. 2 guards, whispering. One of them says they're building something. We need to report it. Maybe 2. But there's something in his eyes now. A spark, not of madness but of clarity. He really believes this can work. And maybe, just maybe, you're starting to believe too. The wings lie across the table now, golden in the torchlight. Yours are lighter, built for agility. His are wider, more stable. Together, they almost look beautiful. Not practical, mind you, but beautiful. You head to bed, exhausted, feathers in your hair and hope in your chest. Tomorrow you fly or crash spectacularly. But either way, you're not staying grounded. You wake before dawn, not because of Daedalus or the birds, but because of the quiet. A stillness has crept over the palace like a blanket, thick, muffled, expectant. The kind of silence that knows something's about to happen. Your father is already up. Of course he is. He's been awake for hours, fine-tuning the wings like a dad packing for a family road trip to the sky. You step into the workshop and the smell hits you. Warm wax, singed feathers, and a hint of stress sweat. He doesn't greet you with a good morning. Just try them on. The weight surprises you, not heavy, but present. Like wearing responsibility, the leather harness bites into your collarbones, and the feathers rustle softly with each breath. He steps back and inspects you. Tilt your arms. Good. Now walk. You're not just wearing them, you're part of them. Don't forget, Daedalus says, his voice low. Too close to the sea, the spray will weigh you down. Too close to the sun, the wax will melt. Daedalus has picked a high terrace at the edge of the palace complex. From here, you can see the sea stretching endlessly, blue on blue, with tiny islands dotting the horizon like crumbs from a divine picnic. The wind brushes your face steady, not too strong. Perfect, or as perfect as launching yourself off a cliff with homemade wings can be. You glance down. Far below, waves crash against rocks in rhythmic fury. Seagulls wheel and dive, mocking you. One poops on a statue of Minos. It feels symbolic. Your father adjusts his harness. His face is unreadable focused, stern, but you notice his hands trembling slightly. Then he says it, "We go tonight." A nice inspirational speech. Maybe a team-building trust fall. No trial flight. You climb the terrace wall and imagine the launch. You lie on your back and count clouds. You try to nap. You fail. Finally, night falls. The moon is a sliver, barely lighting your path, as you and Daedalus climb the stone steps in silence. Below, the palace sleeps, probably, hopefully. You reach the top. The wings are laid out on smooth tiles, shimmering faintly. You kneel beside yours. Your father helps you fasten the straps, again tighter this time. Secure. Final. He checks everything twice, then again. He brushes a strand of hair from your face, and for the briefest second, he's not Daedalus the genius, or Daedalus the escapee, just your dad. He leans close and says, "Don't look down." For one frozen heartbeat, nothing happens. The world holds its breath. Then lift, the wings catch, the wind fills them, and you rise. You actually rise. Below you, the world shrinks. The palace, the terraces, the labyrinth, it all becomes a toy model, fading fast. You look left, Daedalus is flying too. Wings stretched, face set, eyes scanning the horizon. You laugh, loud, wild, free. You are flying, like a god, like a dream. Like Icarus, the boy who would touch the sky. The wind wraps around you like a living thing, tugging at your tunic and whistling through the gaps in your wings. It takes a moment to adjust to the sensation, like riding a horse made of air, unpredictable and alive. But you're flying, actually flying, and not in a metaphorical, spiritual high kind of way. You are above the sea, above the cliffs, above the problems that kept you grounded. For the first few minutes, it's all instinct. Keep your arms steady, tilt your body into turns, adjust your angle like your dad showed you. The wings respond with grace, gliding on the breeze like they were meant for this. You feel weightless, boundless, invincible. Below you, Crete stretches out like a faded tapestry. Olive groves, winding roads, the ruins of temples and markets. The palace recedes behind you, its red pillars glowing faintly in the moonlight. You're leaving behind the island that caged you, and wow, it feels good. Your father calls out over the wind, south by southeast. Follow the stars. He's right. Daedalus actually taught you to navigate by the constellations. You remember awkward nights on the palace roof, him pointing at the sky with a stick and naming each cluster. Orion's belt, that's where you aim. But steer left unless you want to hit Libya. It's all working. The wax is holding, the feathers are intact, you're soaring. And then a bug flies directly into your mouth. You gag, you flail, you wobble midair like a falling leaf. Close your mouth, Daedalus shouts. You're not a dolphin. Now that you're settling into the rhythm of flight, the initial euphoria gives way to other sensations. Your shoulders ache from tension. Your fingers are cramping from clutching the wing supports. And your thighs are beginning to feel like they've been through a Spartan boot camp. Flying is beautiful, yes, but it's also a lot. You glance down. The sea sparkles beneath you like shattered obsidian, the moonlight scattered across its waves. Somewhere below, dolphins leap. Or maybe sharks. You're choosing dolphins. It's bedtime. We don't need that kind of negativity. Here's a fascinating historical twist. In some lesser-known versions of your myth, it's said that the wings didn't just allow flight. They gave you a euphoric sense of freedom that was dangerously addictive, not unlike the thrill-seeking high of modern base jumpers or extreme sports junkies. That rush, it's part of what pushed you higher. And honestly, you get it. The air up here feels cleaner, lighter. Like every breath is a gulp of freedom. You start climbing, testing your height. The higher you go, the colder the air gets. A chill creeps through your linen. Your teeth chatter a little, but you ignore it. You look down again. Daedalus is lower now, waving, shouting something. You can't quite hear him. What's he saying? You dip slightly to get closer. He's gesturing big, frantic motions. Then it hits you. Not the message, though, that arrives a second later, but the warmth, the sun. It's not up yet, technically, but you're high enough now that the first rays have found you. You're in that magical slice of time where the world below is still dark. But up here, the sky is bleeding gold, and it's stunning. The sunlight dances across your wings, illuminates the wax like amber. Everything glows, and you think, I was born for this. Historians still debate whether you were overconfident or simply enchanted by the experience. Some blame youthful arrogance. Others argue you were intoxicated by freedom for the first time in your life. Whatever the reason, your climb becomes deliberate. You bank left, then up, higher. The wind thins. The sun gets brighter. You can almost touch it, and somewhere far below, your father is screaming your name, but you can't hear him anymore. The roar of your heartbeat drowns everything else. The sunlight wraps around you like honey, thick and golden, coating your wings, your arms, your face. It's warmer than you expected, deceptively gentle. A lullaby disguised as a warning. You tilt your wings to catch more of it, leaning into the climb, chasing that glow with the zeal of a moth and the naivety of a teenager with no exit strategy. Below, the clouds are thinning into wisps. You've left behind the layer of soft morning fog. rising into the realm where only birds and myths reside. And that's exactly what you feel, like a myth in motion. For a moment, you forget everything. The guards, the palace, the fact that you're defying every natural law by flapping around with bird parts strapped to your spine. None of that matters. You are flight. You are air. Your wings begin to hum with the altitude. Not literally, but there's a vibration you feel in your bones, a pressure behind your eyes. The wind sings in your ears like a choir of ghosts. Then the first drip, tiny, barely noticeable, a soft line of wax trailing down your forearm. Warm, sticky, innocent. You frown. Then you spot another, from your shoulder joint this time. Then two more. The warmth of the sun is no longer comforting. It's a furnace, and you're wearing a wax tuxedo. You start to descend slightly, hoping it's not too late. But the damage is already whispering through the feathers. A twitch in your left wing, a soft, sluggish response from your right. You pump your arms, but it's like pulling at weights through molasses. Okay, you mutter. Okay, we're fine. It's fine. This is fine. You glance over and see the feathers drooping, slipping loose, as the wax that held them melts into slow golden teardrops. One by one, they drift away, tiny, weightless goodbyes. Here's the eccentric trivia for the night. Some Renaissance paintings of your fall show you already halfway to the sea, wings splayed, body tumbling. But there's one weird medieval version where you're still smiling mid-descent. Scholars argue whether it's because the painter misunderstood the myth, or because you just maybe felt a twisted sort of peace in that moment. Historians still debate whether your final thought was panic or awe. Back to your rapidly worsening situation. The air is no longer your friend. It bites. It buffets. Without both wings fully intact, you've become a one-sided glider in a hurricane. You're tilting left, hard, spinning. You shout just one word, maybe your father's name, maybe the gods, maybe just a raw syllable of defiance. And then the right wing begins to give. The wax liquefies faster now, trickling in hot lines down your back. The feathers, once pristine and aligned, are now a ragged mess like a chicken after a bad date with a thunderstorm. Gravity taps you on the shoulder and says, "My turn." You see the world as you've never seen it before. The curvature of the earth, the deep blue fading into indigo, the island of Crete, tiny, innocent. Far below, the sun still rising, mocking and majestic. And you think this was worth it, even now. The fall isn't a clean drop. It's chaotic, violent. Your limbs flail against the wind. Your remaining feathers trail behind you like the tail of a broken comet. The sky, which moments ago held you in a warm, golden cradle, now watches passively as gravity yanks you back to Earth like a jealous ex. Your brain can't keep up with the descent. It's a blur, sky, sea, feathers, sky again. Your mouth opens to scream, but the wind fills it too fast, stealing the sound before it leaves your throat. All you can do is fall and hope you hit something soft, like a cloud, or a particularly fluffy whale. Spoiler, you don't. You smash into a grove of olive trees just before the shoreline. Not gracefully, not even like someone trying to land. You're all elbows, knees, and bird debris, crashing through branches like a failed pinata. The impact knocks the breath from your lungs. You hit the ground, roll, hit something else, and finally stop face down in dirt, heart hammering in your ears and every muscle screaming. You're alive, barely. Also, your wings are completely destroyed. Feathers are everywhere. Your harness is broken, and the wax is now a thin, gritty film across your back. You look like a fallen angel from a low-budget mythological soap opera. A historical interlude for your pain. The ancient Greeks loved the idea of hubris. It was the ultimate narrative seasoning. Fly too high? Punishment. Love too hard? Punishment. Invent fire, marriage, democracy? Eventually, punishment. Icarus became the poster boy for this lesson. Don't get cocky. Kid. Still wearing his wings. One is bent, the other dragging a trail of feathers like a defeated parade float. He drops beside you, grabs your face, and says the single most parental phrase in all of Greek mythology. You scared me. The sea sparkling as if none of this ever happened. The island you've landed on is small, barely a bump of land with a few trees and a lonely stretch of beach. Not home, but not Crete either, which technically is a win. We'll rest here, Daedalus says. Then we rebuild. So he's finally accepted the superiority of sea travel. Here's a curious footnote. Some scholars believe Daedalus eventually made it to Sicily, where he found refuge with another king. Others say he never left the island where you fell, and one strange alternate version claims he buried the wings and never spoke of flight again. History, like wax, tends to melt and reshape itself. As the day warms, you lie back on the grass and stare at the clouds. One of them looks like a goat, another like King Minos getting pooped on by a seagull. You chuckle. Your dad glances at you. What now? And your mouth tastes like pine bark and regret. Your limbs protest every movement, but the ache is duller now, more like a reminder than a threat. Daedalus is nowhere in sight, though you hear distant rustling, probably him forging or arguing with a rock about wind resistance. You sit up slowly, brush leaves from your hair, and take in your surroundings. The island is tiny, but lush. Olive trees cluster near the shore, and there's a small stream trickling nearby. You're no cartographer, but you're fairly certain this place isn't on any tourist map. No guards, no labyrinth, no walls, just open sky and the occasional gull giving you a judgmental side-eye. Eventually, Daedalus returns carrying a bundle of something that looks vaguely edible. Figs, maybe, or poison. At this point, you're not picky. We'll need shelter, he says, as though this is just a father-son camping trip and not a recovery mission from aerial disaster. You raise an eyebrow. So, not going back to Crete? Then, you and Daedalus fall into a rhythm. He scavenges materials, makes tools from stones and wood, and mutters Greek math equations under his breath. You handle lighter tasks, fetching water, testing edible plants. You're now 70% sure that one leaf gave you hallucinations, and building the fire. The wings, now folded and tattered, lie nearby like fallen trophies. Daedalus barely looks at them. Once, you ask, do you regret it? Didn't just want escape, he wanted to be remembered. And using you, his son, to prove that his invention worked? Well, it's complicated. Historians still argue whether he was a visionary or just another tragic narcissist with a workbench. But now, watching him stitch palm fronds into rope while humming a lullaby, he swore he forgot. It's hard to see him as anything but tired, human, a dad doing his best after a spectacular fail. You try to lighten the mood. So we build a boat, sail away. Then what? You invent underwater breathing? He even admits that the wax formula was, in his words, structurally optimistic. You learn this the hard way the next morning when you spot a ship on the horizon, sleek, dark-sailed, and moving far too deliberately for a merchant vessel. You grab Daedalus and point. He curses in a language you don't understand. We need to go, he says. Now, should we run? Crammed together in a rocky crevice that smells like damp moss and wounded dignity, You and Daedalus hold your breath as the sounds of King Minos's men draw closer. It's like hide and seek, except the stakes are exile, imprisonment, or possibly having your head on a pike as a cautionary decoration back in Crete. The boots crunch closer. Daedalus tenses beside you. You glance at him. His face is set, jaw clenched. One hand on the makeshift spear you carved from driftwood and fatherly anxiety. The man who once built labyrinths and flying machines is now a fugitive hiding in a cave like a scared crab. Not his best arc. One of the guards speaks. It's muffled, but you catch the word tracks. Another voice grunts, then silence. Minutes drag. You hear the rustle of leaves. A few birds flee the trees and a burst of feathers bit ironic, then a splash. They're checking the stream. You shift your weight slightly, and a rock the size of a grape tumbles out of the crevice. It hits the ground below. Everything goes still. You and Daedalus don't move. Don't breathe. Don't blink. Somewhere in the trees, a lizard sneezes. You're pretty sure, and even that seems loud. Then, miraculously, the guards move on. Or so it seems. Daedalus whispers, "Don't trust it." Historical tidbit. Some sources claim Minos pursued Daedalus across multiple islands, even bribing rulers to turn him in. One version says he invented the world's first extradition request. Petty doesn't even begin to cover it. You wait in the crevice until night falls. Only then do you dare crawl out, stiff-limbed and itchy. Daedalus stretches, wincing, as he tries to rotate his shoulder. You do a quick scout, barefoot on cold stone. Heart pounding like a drum solo. No signs of the soldiers, just the stars above, uncaring and perfect. "We need to leave tonight," Daedalus says. "You said that last time. We still haven't built a boat. Too soft." Daedalus turns to you. "I've made many mistakes." The raft dips dangerously as you climb aboard. Daedalus takes the front, you the back. You push off. The shore recedes. The stars blur. The wind picks up just enough to catch your makeshift sail, an old tunic tied between two poles. You're moving. Not fast, but fast enough. Behind you, the island vanishes into the dark. Ahead, open sea. For the second time in your life, you leave the land behind, guided by starlight and desperation. But this time, there's no wax, no feathers, no illusions. Just you, your father, a questionable raft, and a stubborn streak wider than the Aegean. The raft groans like it knows it was never meant for this journey. Each wave slaps against it with the enthusiasm of a toddler and the force of an ancient grudge. You and Daedalus huddle, close, soaked, cold, and clinging to optimism like it's another leaky plank. The stars are your only compass. Daedalus keeps muttering the same few constellations. Under his breath, Orion, Cassiopeia, some others that may or may not be real. You're starting to suspect he's just naming Minoan cheese brands. Where are we even going? You ask through chattering teeth. Sicily, maybe. And teenager. At one point you spot something glowing in the water. Is that a sea monster? You whisper. Daedalus peers over. Bioluminescent plankton? And you, floating here on a raft held together by sandal straps and fatherly guilt, are starting to see their point. As the night stretches on, you begin to drift mentally and physically. Your paddling slows, your eyelids droop. The stars blur into gentle smears above you. You think about Crete, and for the first time, it doesn't feel like a prison, just a place you survived. A launch pad, not a trap. Then the sky begins to change. A pale blush creeps along the horizon. The sun is returning, and you can't help but wince. Last time it showed up, things got melty, but this sunrise is kinder. It warms without scorching. It lights your path without judgment. Land, Daedalus says, pointing. You sit up, blinking. In the distance, a faint line of green and brown. An island, real, tangible, unburnt. It takes hours, but eventually your raft scrapes against a rocky shore. You stumble off, legs jelly-like, kissing the ground in mock celebration. I made it, you shout, without wings, keeping low, avoiding the open fields. If Minos is still searching, you're not giving him a clean shot. By midday, you find a cave with a view of the sea and just enough shade to hide in. You collapse inside, exhausted. That's when Daedalus pulls something from his satchel. A map. Not a very good one, more like a sketch on animal skin, but it shows islands, wind currents, and a few trade routes. You squint. We're here, and floated through open ocean on a glorified table. And you're still here, still Icarus, not melted, not broken, just different. And somewhere deep in your sore, sunburned chest, you feel it again. Hope. By your 5th day on the island, you've almost started to feel like a normal person again, assuming normal people live in caves, eat nothing but roasted lizards and foraged berries, and have PTSD flashbacks every time they see a feather. The land is kind, though. The sun shines, but not aggressively. The breeze carries the scent of pine and salt. And best of all, no Minos, no soldiers, just you, your dad, and the buzzing chorus of bugs that have clearly claimed this island as their ancestral stomping ground. Daedalus has found a new hobby. Rebuilding. Not wings this time, thank the gods, but tools. Hooks, nets, water catchers, and a surprisingly functional fishing spear made from a branch and one of his belt buckles. You, meanwhile, have become proficient at fire starting, food detecting, and the ancient art of pretending not to cry when you step on sharp pebbles. You're sitting by the sea one morning, skipping stones, badly, when your dad joins you. Remember the tower in Athens? He asks out of nowhere. You blink. The one with the spiral staircase? He looks out over the sea. You were always chasing heights. The man couldn't stop building things. He was the original, can't leave well enough alone guy, and maybe that's why you flew too close to the sun. Not because you were arrogant, but because you wanted to meet him there. You spend the next few hours foraging. You find figs, wild onions, and what Daedalus calls, probably not poisonous mushrooms. You decide to eat them anyway, because honestly, what's one more questionable decision? Later you find him sketching in the dirt with a stick, a boat design, long hull, wide bottom, wind-catching sail. You stare at it. You're serious. A freshwater pool near the eastern cliffs. A tree with leaves that taste like mint. Even a herd of goats that eye you with suspicion, but don't flee. You're not sure if this is paradise or just the eye of a storm, but for now, it's enough. That night you sit by the fire, the stars like glitter smeared across the sky. Daedalus pokes the coals thoughtfully. Do you think people will remember us? You ask. He doesn't answer right away. Depends, he says at last. If we live long enough to tell the story ourselves, maybe. And none of them ever asking what it felt like to fly. What it cost to come back. Maybe, you say slowly. They'll write it as a tragedy. Daedalus wakes you with a less than gentle poke to the ribs and a grunted time to build. Not exactly the kind of greeting that inspires poetry, but you roll over and groan yourself upright. The shipyard is a flat patch of grass near the cave, where he's already lined up materials, driftwood, vines, resin scraped from tree bark. It's not exactly Royal Navy quality, but it's impressive especially for two fugitives. working with zero tools and one of you still walking like you lost a fight with a statue. You limp over and eye the skeleton of the boat. This doesn't have wings, right? As you twist, loop, and pull, your mind drifts. Back to Crete. Back to the labyrinth. Back to that moment in the sky before the wax dripped, before the sun turned cruel, when you were weightless. It's strange, but you miss it. Not the fall, not the terror, but that moment of perfect balance, of being suspended between earth and heaven, of believing, even for a second, that you could stay there. You're pulled from your thoughts by a snap. The vine breaks in your hand. Daedalus looks over. You're thinking too hard again. His mind still flies ahead to designs, possibilities, dangers. You used to resent that. Now you understand it. Historians often describe Daedalus as a symbol of reason, an inventor guided by logic and craft. But he also made choices that defy logic, helping Queen Pasiphae, building wings from wax, trusting a teenage boy not to chase the sun. Some scholars say he represents the tension between genius and hubris. Others argue he's simply a father trying to fix his biggest mistake. By midday, the skeleton of the boat is almost done. It's ugly, misshapen. One side sags more than the other, but it floats in theory. We'll test it tomorrow, Daedalus says, wiping sap from his fingers. You nod, then ask the question you've been holding on to for days. Did you ever really think I'd make it? And because I knew you'd never forgive me if I said no. But the ground has its uses. But I'll know the truth, stretching slowly over the horizon, like it knows you're not in a hurry today. You and Daedalus are standing knee-deep in the water, staring down at the thing you've decided to call a boat. It's more like a glorified raft with aspirations held together by pine sap, ambition, and several stern glares. Time for the maiden voyage, Daedalus says. Should I name it first? You ask. Maybe the unsinkable mistake? Captain Icarus reporting. No immediate drowning, but you've got your map, your courage, and your dad's ridiculous confidence. Around midday, you decide to rest in the shade. Daedalus sprawls on a blanket of pine needles, arms behind his head. You lie next to him, staring up at the swaying branches above. You ever think we're being watched? You ask. He opens one eye. By who? Seagulls. Here's your scholarly tidbit of the day. In some interpretations, Icarus isn't a warning. He's a hero. Not because he succeeded, but because he tried. In a culture obsessed with fate and order, to break free, even for a moment, was radical, revolutionary. You wonder what that means for you now. As the sun begins to dip again, you help your father pack the last of the supplies onto the raft. You're set to leave in the morning. Then, as you roll up your blanket, your foot catches something under a shrub. You bend down, push aside the leaves. It's a carved stone tablet, roughly square, covered in strange symbols. You call Daedalus over. He kneels beside it, brushes it off with care. His face tightens. Linear A, he mutters. Minoan script. You're not alone in this story. That night, before bed, Daedalus adds something to the map. Not a location, a symbol, a spiral. What's that, you ask? Hope, he says simply. You lie awake for a long time, listening to the wind whistle through the pines. And you think, watching the sea churn in gentle swells. The boat bobs nearby, already loaded, already waiting. Daedalus is behind you, humming a tune you've never heard before, probably some old Athenian drinking song, disguised as a work chat. You check your meager supplies again. Not that there's much to check: some smoked fish, 2 bundles of dried berries, a water skin you've resealed 3 times already, and a pouch of fire-starting flint. Luxury travel it is not. I added stabilizers to the back, Daedalus says, dragging a log that looks suspiciously like it was stolen from a goat fence. For steering, it's time. You wade into the water and climb aboard. The raft shifts, groans, but floats. Daedalus steps on more cautiously, and for a moment you both freeze, waiting for the sound of something cracking. Nothing. A miracle. You push off. The island recedes behind you, slowly, then with surprising speed. You don't look back, neither does he. The wind favors you, catching your patchwork sail just enough to pull you forward. The sea glitters under the sun, which for once isn't trying to incinerate you. It's just warm, gentle, watching. For hours you drift in silence, the kind of silence that's not empty but full of thought, full of unspoken words. Eventually, Daedalus breaks it. You know, he says, people are going to talk about this. Us? What we did. Here's your historical flavor of the moment. The myth of Icarus has been retold in dozens of versions. Some ancient sources say Daedalus flew perfectly, landing in Sicily, where he became the king's engineer. Others claim he destroyed the wings after your fall and lived in seclusion. One even says he swore never to teach again, a broken genius haunted by flight. But this version, it's yours. Around midday, clouds roll in. Not dark ones, just lazy, cottony drifters. The light softens, the wind shifts, your boat sways. You eat in silence dried berries, a little fish. The sea is calm, but unpredictable. Waves rise and fall without warning, rocking the raft like a cradle with mood swings. Suddenly, Daedalus stands. There, he says. You follow his gaze. In the distance, another island larger, greener, dotted with stone towers and what looks like smoke from a chimney. Civilization. Sicily, you ask? Maybe. Then another. You freeze. Dolphins, you whisper, hopeful. Daedalus squints. Let's pretend, yes, maybe they were dolphins. Your heart lifts not with the wind, groaning slightly as his knees complain after the long night at sea. You've made it, wherever it is. The beach is quiet, save for the waves lapping gently, and the occasional squawk from some invisible bird that clearly has strong opinions about your arrival. Beyond the dunes you see low hills, a grove of olive trees, and rooftops, real rooftops. Civilization. Smoke curls upward in lazy spirals from stone chimneys. There's even the sound of a goat somewhere, because of course there is. You both drop your packs in the sand and sit. You know, you say, this could be Sicily, stretching warm fingers across your skin. It feels like an apology for last time, and you accept it. After a while, you explore. Not far just to the grove, the trees sway gently, their silver-green leaves whispering secrets you're not ready to hear yet. You pick an olive, bite, instantly regret it. Turns out raw olives taste like betrayal. Daedalus chuckles. We'll press them later. And the sail is little more than a fancy dishcloth at this point. But it got you here? Think we'll stay? You ask. Daedalus shrugs. We always stay, until we don't. And in that moment, you let yourself breathe. Not cautiously. Not like someone waiting for the next chase, the next fall, but fully, deeply, as someone who has landed, who has endured. You close your eyes. You imagine people hearing your story. They'll picture the wings, the flight, the fall, but they won't picture this. The calm, the warmth, the quiet. They won't know what it's like to lie here, the sand against your back, the breeze teasing your hair, the steady breath of your father sleeping beside you. And that's okay. Some parts of the story belong to the sky. Others, each exhale lets go of weight memories, expectations, even a little fear. The world is slow now, soft, safe. You feel the sand beneath you, warm and solid, grounding you. The sky above, endless and calm. The sea beyond, steady and familiar. Everything holds you. Everything supports you. There is nowhere you need to go, no heights to chase, no monsters to flee. Only rest. Only now. Your father stirs beside you, murmurs something unintelligible in his sleep, then settles again. A bird calls from a nearby tree, its song low and melodic. The breeze moves through the leaves, a gentle rustle like whispers from the gods' kind ones this time. And as you lie there in the space between myth and morning, you realize something simple and true, not because you never broke, but because you came back. And maybe, just maybe, you squint against the morning sun and find one staring at you, chewing grass with the intensity of someone contemplating ancient philosophy. Daedalus is already up, naturally. He's squatting near the tree line, sketching something in the dirt with a stick. His hair is sticking up at odd angles, and he's muttering about hull curvature. It's comforting, in a weird, slightly deranged way. You sit up, stretch, and hobble over. Already designing our next escape, eventually you pack up your few belongings and start walking inland. The path is worn, clearly used. You pass olive trees, low stone walls, and a goat that looks like it is absolutely no time for your nonsense. It's not long before you reach the village. It's small, only a dozen or so homes made of stone and wood, clustered around a well and a few trees heavy with figs. A woman sees you approaching and pauses mid-washing. You raise a hand in greeting. She doesn't scream. That's a win. Instead, she calls for someone. A man steps out, a blacksmith, by the look of his apron and soot-stained hands. Daedalus steps forward and offers the man a short, respectful nod. We're travelers, he says, simply, shipwrecked. Then the direction you came from. There's no ship, he says. We had a raft, you explain. A raft, Daedalus adds helpfully, that mostly floated. You try not to cry when you see the pottery jug of fresh water waiting by the door. Over the next few days, you and Daedalus blend into village life. He helps the smith repair tools. You assist in the olive grove, learning quickly that goats are evil geniuses. No one asks too many questions, though you catch the occasional curious glance when you struggle with your totally normal back injury, or when Daedalus makes offhand comments about wind resistance while fixing a plow. One evening, sitting by the fire outside your hut, Daedalus turns to you. We can stay here if you want. These people, this stillness, and maybe, just maybe, this peace. Here's your fun fact of the evening. Some versions of the myth say that Daedalus found a new home, a new patron, and lived out his life quietly, inventing small things, irrigation tools, clever locks, water clocks. Not glory, not tragedy, just usefulness. Historians argue whether that's too mundane for a man who once crafted wings from scratch. But others believe it's the perfect ending, a genius learning that not every day needs to be epic. You don't know what your ending will be yet, but for now this chapter feels right. You've been in the village for over a week now, and your hands are finally starting to look like they belong to a farmer instead of someone who lost a fight with a glue factory. Your skin is tanned, your limbs sore, and your stomach full on a somewhat regular basis, a miracle in itself. The people here are kind in that we don't ask questions, but we're watching, sort of way. They nod to you at the well, offer you extra bread, occasionally ask if you've seen their goat, which half the time you have trying to chew Daedalus's diagrams. Daedalus, meanwhile, has gone full inventor in retirement. He's fixed a wine press. He redesigned a fishing net so it catches only fish above a certain size. He's currently working on a rotating spit that turns itself using heated air and a series of pulleys. And, honestly, it's excessive but impressive. Today, though, is different. He's carving something small in the corner of your hut. Not a tool, not a trap. It's a figurine stone, worn smooth from his hands. A boy with wings. You sit beside him, quiet. He doesn't stop carving. "I dreamed of you flying again," he says after a while. "This time, you didn't fall, now dried and curled at the edges." Maybe that was the real dream, you say, that I could fall and still wake up, which is a blessing. Instead, she says you have the hands of someone who's worked hard or broken something important. After the meal, an old man asks Daedalus what he did before. The stars are familiar again, like old friends. You sit on a stone wall and listen to the hum of crickets, the distant bleat of that one goat you suspect is plotting something. You think about how this place is different from anywhere you've been. It's not a cage, not a launching point, not a test. It's just a place to land. A brief historical side note. In one obscure version of your story told in a lost play by Euripides, according to rumor, Daedalus builds a small temple on the island where you fell. Not a shrine of mourning, but a monument of survival. Some say that temple later became a place where sailors left offerings for safe passage. Others claim it was just a pile of stones with a story attached. Maybe that's all any of us are in the end, stories attached to stones. Back in the hut, Daedalus has set the figurine on a shelf. It watches you now, silent, feathered, peaceful. You smile at it. You survive the fall. You're still writing the landing. It starts with a poem. You overhear it in the village square, sung by a traveling merchant while he sharpens his blade against a whetstone. His voice is rough but steady, carrying words that stop you mid-step. Just walk slowly back to your hut, the words echoing in your skull. They're not cruel, exactly, but they sting all the same, like someone painting your life in strokes too broad, too simple. Daedalus is inside, working on a pulley system to draw water more efficiently. You drop onto your straw mat and ask, "Have you heard the poem? Which version? What is there to say?" Here's a curiosity for the night. Myths are like wet clay. They start firm, shaped by facts, or at least by stories told with conviction. But over time they soften, shift, and are molded by those who need them to mean something else. Your story was always going to outgrow you, but hearing it sung before the bruises even fade, that's something else. The next day, more travelers pass through. A young couple from the coast, a fisherman with sun-bleached hair, a man claiming to be a historian, with scrolls tucked into his satchel, and a hunger for stories in his eyes. You avoid them, but Daedalus doesn't. You see him talking to the historian one afternoon, not giving details exactly, just guiding the narrative. Later you ask, "Are you trying to rewrite it?" You walk to the edge of the village and watch the stars again. They're so steady, so immune to interpretation. Orion doesn't care who tells your story. Cassiopeia doesn't know she's been mispronounced for centuries. You breathe in the cool air and whisper to yourself, but they won't say how it felt when the wind held you, when the sky bent around you like it belonged to you, when the sea below was just another color. They'll miss the joy, the wild, perfect joy. And maybe that's okay. Maybe not every part of the story needs to be remembered. Some things are yours alone. You're sitting on the low wall by the well, chewing a piece of dried fig and watching Daedalus fix a wagon wheel. using nothing but a hammer, a piece of driftwood, and what might be the handle of a broken ladle. He works quietly, sleeves rolled up, brow furrowed. The villagers hover nearby, fascinated. It's like watching someone do magic, but really it's just years of stubborn genius and a refusal to let anything stay broken. That's when the merchant returns. The same one, same horse, same knife, and yes, same poem, though now he sings it louder, with a crowd around him. You sink lower on the wall, wishing your tunic came with a hood. He doesn't recognize you. Why would he? To him, you're just another boy in a dusty village, not a fallen legend, not a cautionary lyric. You listen again as he sings. You see him hand the man a coin and say something low. The merchant nods. The conversation is short, controlled, intentional. When Daedalus returns, you ask, "What did you tell him?" Icarus became a favorite subject for painters, not because of the flight, but because of the fall. Peter Bruegel, the elder, painted your fall so small and quiet, it's barely noticeable. In a corner of a pastoral scene, your legs vanish into the sea, while farmers plow their fields, indifferent. Life goes on. That was the point. You wonder if the villagers will remember you, if anyone will notice when you leave. If your story, now a ballad bouncing across the islands, will ever carry your name with truth. One day, while helping a boy repair a broken yoke, he asks casually, "Is it true that someone once flew?" "I don't know," you say. "Maybe," wondering how many versions of you now exist out there. Reckless boy, tragic symbol, melted metaphor. And quietly, you promise yourself this. Breathe in the warm earth and resinous air, and try not to think about the fact that somewhere out there, a theater troupe might be reenacting your dramatic plunge as interpretive dance. Daedalus finds you like this, arms folded behind your head, one sandal missing, probably dreaming of punching a poet. "You hear about the festival?" he asks, dropping a bundle of sticks beside you. You squint up at him. Please don't say it involves goats. Later that evening, you wander through the village square where preparations have begun. Lanterns dangle from strings, catching the wind like glowing fruit. A makeshift stage has been built from planks and overturned crates. Children run barefoot, chasing one another in loose circles, shouting about heroes and monsters. You sit at the edge, watching a group rehearse a short scene. One boy flaps his arms dramatically. Another plays the sun, literally wearing a painted disc around his head and trying not to fall off the platform. The audience laughs. It's absurd, and yet, here's your eccentric nugget of the night. In a 12th century version of your myth, a scholar tried to reframe your story as a religious allegory, arguing that your flight was actually a metaphor for the soul's yearning for heaven. He missed the part where you ate bugs mid-flight and crash-landed in a tree, but sure go off, medieval philosopher. The troupe's leader, a woman with wild hair and paint-stained fingers, spots you. "You're new," she says, walking over. You nod. "Just passing through." There's no recognition. No sly wink, just a storyteller offering a seat by the fire. You say yes. That night, in the quiet of your hut, Daedalus hands you something wrapped in linen. You unfold it slowly. It's a feather, real, preserved. The only one that survived the fall, he says. You hold it up to the candlelight, watching it cast shadows on the wall. Not a wing, not anymore, but a symbol of risk, of defiance, of truth. And as the village settles into sleep, you lie awake imagining how you'll tell it. Not as a warning, but as a beginning. The morning of the festival arrives wrapped in the scent of baking bread, fresh-cut herbs, and wood smoke. The village buzzes with anticipation. The kind of quiet chaos that says everyone's pretending not to care while absolutely caring too much. Children dart between stalls with fig-stained fingers. Old women argue over the best place to hang garlands. And somewhere, someone's attempting to tune a lyre with a level of aggression usually reserved for goat wrangling. You stand at the edge of it all, trying to decide if you're going to run for the hills or lean into the absurdity. Daedalus finds you at the water trough, washing your hands. Have you decided what to say? He asks. I was thinking of opening with, so I fell out of the sky once, and it was awesome. The makeshift stage glows under a net of colored claws. People gather, locals, travelers, a few traders who smell like the inside of a spice jar. There's laughter, music, clapping. The troupe performs first. Their version of your myth is light, silly, and about 40% interpretive dance. The Icarus wears chicken feathers and shouts to the sun every few minutes. You cringe. Daedalus tries not to laugh. Fails. Then they call you up. Just a young traveler with a story to tell. A prison made of stone and silence. A plan. A flight. A moment in the sky that felt like forever. A fall, a survival. You pause often. Let the words settle. Let the crowd breathe. And then you say something you didn't plan. He's watching you with a quiet pride that makes your throat tighten. The crowd is still, listening. Really listening. You finish softly. And maybe the fall wasn't the end. Maybe it was just where the sky handed him back, changed, to share stories of their own flights and falls, literal or not. You nod, smile, say little. Later, back at the hut, Daedalus hands you a mug of something warm and vaguely alcoholic. You were good, he says. I didn't tell them everything. You realize something unexpected. Sketching again in the dirt. When you approach, he covers it quickly with his foot. New invention? You ask, sipping from the lukewarm tea he brewed from some questionable local herbs. Maybe. Chasing stray chickens that apparently partied a little too hard. Then Daedalus says, I've been thinking someone might recognize you. Again. Others suggest he was paranoid, always expecting betrayal or exploitation. But maybe, just maybe, he was chasing something simpler, a place where the story stopped chasing him. You spend the day helping the villagers one last time. Lyra gives you a basket of figs. The blacksmith slips Daedalus a finely worked chisel. The goat naturally headbutts you as a parting gesture. That night, you sit on the beach, the raft half rebuilt, sturdier now, shaped by knowledge and fewer miracles. You stare out at the moonlight rippling on the water. I don't regret it, you say. Daedalus beside you nods. Neither do I, but I wouldn't have soared. And you rose because of it, too. The raft is ready before dawn. It sits at the water's edge, slick with dew, modest but sturdy. Not a chariot of gods, not a vessel of myths. Just wood and rope and a little stubbornness. You and Daedalus stand beside it, packs on your shoulders, sand sticking to your feet. The village still sleeps behind you, except for the rooster that clearly didn't get the memo about subtlety. You glance back once more. The hut, the well, the people who fed you without asking for your past. And in that quiet goodbye, something settles in your chest, gratitude maybe, or the realization that even a temporary home leaves fingerprints on your soul. Daedalus touches your shoulder. Ready? As I'll ever be. You rest under the sail while Daedalus steers. He hums an old tune, off-key but steady. It's one you remember from your childhood, a lullaby about stars and sailors, and something about honey cakes. You never understood the lyrics, Still don't. After a while, you sit up and say, tell me something strange, something not in the stories. Here's tonight's eccentric morsel. There's a theory highly debated and not widely accepted that ancient craftsmen used oils in wax to make it more pliable in flight gear. Whether this was for practical reasons or just because they liked their flying apparatus to smell like salad dressing remains unclear. But it's true that scent lingers in memory longer than sight, and you do remember the smell, sweet, warm, almost like safety. As the sun begins to dip, casting gold over the water, you ask a more serious question. Do you think I'll ever be just a person again? Not a symbol, not a warning. They want their Icarus to fall neatly, to be humbled and tragic. But real life isn't myth. It's messy. It's ongoing. And sometimes it involves rebuilding a raft 3 times before it stops spinning in circles. The sea grows quieter as night falls. The stars emerge one by one, like shy spectators returning for Act 2. You lie back and watch them appear, whispering each constellation by name. Daedalus joins you. Still want to fly? He asks. You pause, then smile. Not today. Adjusting the sail, and occasionally shouting instructions at the wind. It never listens. At one point, a gull lands on the bow and stares at you with one beady, judgmental eye. You stare back. It doesn't blink. Eventually, it poops and leaves. A true critic. By midday, a fog rolls in thick and sudden, like someone dropped a curtain over the world. The horizon vanishes. The sun becomes a ghost. Daedalus frowns. We'll need to stop. Eventually, you spot land a dark silhouette through the mist. A narrow inlet, flanked by cliffs. You guide the raft in carefully, heart pounding. The water calms as you enter the cove. The cliffs shield it from the wind, and the fog hangs above like a ceiling. It's eerily quiet. You anchor near a cluster of smooth stones and step ashore. The beach is small, lined with driftwood and black pebbles. Beyond, a path winds into the cliffs, half hidden by vines and brambles. Daedalus kneels, examining the stones. The salt. Volcanic island. We're off the map. Or maybe it's just really bad weather. You explore a little while Daedalus patches the sail. The path through the cliffs leads to a hidden plateau. There you find the ruins of a small stone structure, just 4 walls, roofless, long abandoned. Inside, faded symbols mark the walls. Spirals, wings, a sun with rays reaching downward. You touch one gently. It's warm. You return to camp in silence, thoughts buzzing. That night, as you lie beside the fire, the fog begins to lift. Stars pierce the mist like quiet promises. The moon rises full and silver, casting your shadows across the black pebbles. Daedalus stirs. What did you find up there? Listening to the sea whisper against the rocks. Off the map, off the record, but never out of story. The next morning arrives with clear skies and a sense of quiet purpose. The fog is gone, as if it was never there. The cliffs that once loomed like sentinels now simply look beautiful. Golden stone streaked with moss, warmed by the sun. The air smells like salt and something faintly floral, maybe from the tiny blue blossoms poking through the rocks. You and Daedalus eat a modest breakfast of stale bread and wild figs, then return to the stone ruin on the plateau. I want to look closer, you say. He follows without question. Inside the ruin, the sunlight filters through the open roof, casting slow-moving patterns on the carved walls. You run your fingers across the symbols again. Spirals, wings, the sun, always the sun. Daedalus studies them quietly. This wasn't a home. It's a shrine, but partially legible. Maybe it was enough that someone tried to fly. Here's your strange fact for the night. In some local legends scattered across the Mediterranean, unnamed skyboys or feathered sons appear in island folklore, sometimes as heroes, sometimes as spirits that visit in dreams. Historians usually dismiss these as echoes of the Icarus myth, spreading through oral tradition, but a few fringe scholars suggest they might be older. Proto-myths, the kind of story we're all born knowing, before it gets translated into tragedy. You linger in the shrine longer than you intend to. When you finally return to the cove, the raft is ready. Daedalus has patched the sail again, tightened the bindings, checked every rope twice. I don't think this island is on any map, he says. Then it's perfect, you reply. As you push off again, the shrine remains visible on the cliff above, just a sliver of stone now, a memory. But something feels different. Like the sea knows your name, you sail under the open sky, the wind strong but steady. Daedalus reads the clouds, you adjust the rudder, and the horizon stretches endlessly before you. Eventually, you ask, do you think there are more places like that? Sea and sky, wind and sail. Wake, eat, steer, sleep. The rhythm is simple, meditative, like a chant in motion. Your arms ache less now. Your skin has gone from sun-kissed to sun-slapped, and Daedalus has started wrapping his feet with strips of linen to avoid what he calls raft rash. Once even a beach so white it looked like the gods had spilled flour on it. None of the islands are inhabited, or if they are, the people keep well out of sight. You leave no footprints, take nothing but water and rest, and push off again by dawn. You haven't seen another ship in days. At first, it's unnerving. Then it becomes peace. One evening, you find a particularly welcoming cove. Still waters, tall cliffs, and a freshwater spring trickling into a pool that smells faintly of mint. Daedalus calls it a gift, and for once, you agree without sarcasm. You make a small camp there just for the night. As the sun sets, painting the world in warm gold, Daedalus pulls out something from his pack, a small scroll. Worn, stained, he hands it to you. What is this? The scroll between you. And then, without planning it, you ask, what would you do differently? Some writers added new twists, Daedalus blaming the gods, or blaming himself. One obscure poem from the 3rd century BCE even claims he tried to build a time-measuring machine, hoping to steal a moment back. Scholars debate whether this was metaphor or blueprint, but the idea remains. Daedalus, the eternal fixer, trying to repair what was never mechanical. You fold the scroll carefully, hand it back. No more flying, you ask? No, he says, softly, but maybe more floating. They feel like one. You, Icarus, not melted, not myth, not cautionary, just you, breathing, living, still here. It begins with the sound of a drum. You're still half asleep, curled on the raft as it drifts lazily past a rocky coastline, when the low, steady thump pulls you upright. You scan the shore, trees, a beach, a column of smoke, then voices, shouting, laughter. You and Daedalus exchange a look. Do we stop, you ask? He squints at the land. Looks like a market or a celebration. No one stops to look at your raft. You're just two more travelers, two more shadows slipping in through the noise. You walk among stalls stacked with woven baskets, amphorae of oil, glinting tools. Someone offers you roasted figs dipped in honey. You nearly cry. Daedalus barters for a length of proper rope, smiling like he's just acquired treasure. Then you hear it, a voice young, theatrical, cracking slightly under pressure. And so Icarus fell, feathers scattering, his arms wide like a broken star, the wings, the warnings. but they make you arrogant, laughing in the face of your father, flying straight into the sun like it's your personal spotlight. Daedalus appears at your side. Want me to correct them? Because this version, the one they cheer for, it erases the part that mattered. The choice, the moment in the air, the clarity. Here's a strange academic note. Some anthropologists argue that myths evolve not just through time, but through need. People change stories to reflect what they fear, or want, or refuse to understand. Icarus becomes arrogant because it's easier than admitting the world punishes hope. Later, in a quieter part of the market, a woman selling beads notices your feather pendant. Beautiful, she says. You're not from around here, are you? Keeps track of every myth that comes in on the tide. Maybe you'll whisper it into the wind. Maybe it'll start like this. You and Daedalus no longer speak as often while sailing. There's a quiet rhythm to your movement, a language of glances, nods, and the occasional, "Hey, that cloud looks like Minos choking on pride." Just a simple stone ramp leading into the sea. You dock. You climb the slope. You're met with open faces, curious, but not suspicious. They offer bread and olives before you speak a word. A child points at your feather necklace and says, "That's a nice wing," and you simply smile. The storyteller lives in a house with ivy crawling up every wall. His door is painted blue and hung with shells that rattle softly in the breeze. When he answers your knock, he's barefoot, bearded, and wearing a robe that smells like wine and papyrus. He squints at you, then at Daedalus, then says, "Well, you're not traders." Piles of parchment, stone tablets, wood carvings, maps drawn from memory and imagination alike. He gestures for you to sit, pours wine without asking, and says, "Begin," just nodding slowly, eyes sharp. When you finish, he finally says, "Most don't know there's more. Most end here. Here's your odd but lovely fact of the evening." In some modern reinterpretations, Icarus becomes a symbol, not of arrogance, but of resilience, a phoenix in mythic form. In one obscure play, he returns not to mock his fall, but to teach others how to build safer wings. That night, you and Daedalus sleep in the guest room of the scroll-filled house. The wind hums through the shells on the door. You dream of a library filled with versions of your life, each one slightly different. In some you die, in others you never fly, but in one, just one, and excitement. He barely notices you as you step out of the guest room, rubbing sleep from your eyes and trying to remember whether you dreamed of flying, swimming, or just floating in a vat of fig jam. Daedalus is outside in the garden, repairing the man's gate for no reason other than habit. You sit beside him, handing over nails and watching bees bumble through flowering vines. After a while, you ask, "What if no one believes this version?" He landed and kept walking. Does that feel true? Either way, you like it. That evening, the village gathers for a small reading. The storyteller stands before the crowd, holding the scroll you helped shape. He introduces it as a new version of an old tale, the raft creaking against the tide. There's silence. Then applause, and not just polite applause, appreciative, soft, real. A few villagers come up to speak with you afterward. One says his son always feared ambition. Maybe now he won't. Another hands you a carved charm in the shape of a feather. You tuck it into your belt without a word. Daedalus smiles but stays quiet. He doesn't need to say anything. Back at the house, the storyteller rolls up the scroll and places it carefully in a bundle tied with red string. "I'll make copies," he says. "Send them with the traders, the ports, the poets. Not because you have to, but because something inside you says the journey isn't over yet." Maybe it never will be. You and Daedalus pack lightly, leaving behind the raft this time. You've traded it for a proper boat, small, seaworthy, with a patched sail and a name carved into the side in shaky lettering. Feather and Flame. Maybe the story itself. The villagers wave as you leave, smiles wide, hands full of offerings. Figs again. Always figs. As the wind fills the sail and the boat glides into the open sea, you glance back. The cliffs, the rooftops, the scroll house all shrinking behind you, but not disappearing. Not really. They've written you into their walls now. As you move west, the coastline changes. The trees grow taller, the mountains more distant. Birds follow for a while, then peel off, as if to say, this far and no farther. Would you ever build wings again? But now you think maybe he meant everyone. That night, under a sky scraped clean of clouds, you see the stars differently. Not as things to reach, but as things to guide you. You sit at the helm while Daedalus sleeps. The boat rocks gently. The sea sings its low, eternal lullaby. You trace constellations with your finger and name them out loud, even the ones you've renamed. Not today's mistake. They just change course. The stars hang quietly above you now, unblinking and soft. The waves beneath your boat murmur like an old friend, telling stories in a slow, even breath. Each one lifts you, holds you, sets you down again, as if the sea itself has accepted your presence. There's no chase behind you, no sun above you, no destination demanding your urgency. Only the gentle hush of night. You lie back on the deck, arms behind your head, the wood warm beneath you, the air crisp with salt and silence. The boat rocks gently, not enough to startle, just enough to remind you that you're still here, still moving, still safe. Daedalus breathes quietly beside you, his dreams undisturbed. You close your eyes, not in fear, not in exhaustion, but in peace, the kind that only comes after a storm has passed, the kind earned through trial, through questions, through falling and choosing again and again to rise. And as you drift into sleep, you carry with you the weightlessness, not of flight,